So I chose to do my presentation on Jean Piaget, and the reason that I chose him is because I feel like the things that he taught that I've learned through the majority of my courses that I've taken this far into my schooling, I feel like have made the most sense to me and have connected with me the most as to how the brain works and how children develop and how our minds become what they do. And so Jean Piaget's biggest thing was he came out to all of these psychologists during his time that were saying, oh, children just aren't as smart as adults are just smarter, they gain their intelligence as they grow. And he came forward and he said, I don't necessarily think that's the case. I don't think that kids are less smart than adults. I just think that their brains work different and that they mature through time and do different things with time. And so he came up with the different theories of cognitive development based on age groups. And he also came out with something called assimilation and accommodation. And so he taught that children learn things and then they use what they learn to connect it with other things. So for example, an example of assimilation would be a child learning that a creature with 4 legs that is in their house is called a dog. And so they know what a dog is because they see it often and they know it has 4 legs. Accommodation would be then going, say, to a farm and seeing a cow with 4 legs and looking at it and saying doggy. And so they take these assimilations that they learn and they accommodate to using those things to try and put together the pieces of the puzzle to find out what things are. So he then shares 4 different stages of cognitive development. He shares the sensory motor stage, the pre-operational stage, the concrete operational stage, and the formal operational stage. And what each of these things are is the sensory motor stage. Is from the age of 0 to 2. And during this time, right here, children begin to use their motor skills. So they begin to respond using motor skills, both fine motor skills and gross motor skills. They begin to touch, they begin to feel, they have that sensory curiosity, and they begin to learn language for demand. So scream when they want a bottle, scream when they want to be held, and all those types of things. And so that's until the age of 2. And then from the age of 2 to 7, they go into the pre-operational stage. So this is, 2 to 7 is a pretty large gap. There's a lot of things that happen, but the main things that happen during that time, they begin to learn proper grammar. They learn the exact words to use to get the things that they want. They begin to think with their imagination. There's a lot of playing. Playing is actually one of the most important things that children can do during this time to learn. They also learn intuition. They begin to think with their imagination, but abstract thinking is still pretty difficult for them. Next is the concrete operational stage, and during this time, the age 7 to 11, they're very concrete in their thinking. There's not much flexibility, lots of rigid thinking. They base everything pretty much off of logic, but they do start to understand time and space and quantity. But like I said, there's not flexibility in thinking. There's not that abstract thinking that comes in the formal operational stage. And this is from the age of 11 and up. And in this stage, this is where we all are. But it's crazy to me that it actually starts at the age of 11. And that's when children are in that final stage of development. They begin to strategize. They begin to plan. They begin to think theoretically, hypothetically, counterfactually. And this is where they really do have that abstract thinking. So it's really interesting to me to see that all of these stages are important. They build on one another, but it also is a different way that the brain is working during this time. So it's not necessarily dumb per se or not as smart. It's just different. And so I think that that is really cool to see kind of what he promoted as one of the greatest psychologists of the 20th century is this theory of growth, of line upon line, one thing on another thing on another thing on another thing that eventually leads us to being able to have this abstract thinking and going on to do what humans can do. So, thank you.